I do that, I just want to ask a couple quick questions just to level set. How many of you have been to TechShop? Like most everybody. Yeah, I think you can throw it out. Cool. So I'm gonna burn through parts of it and then get to I think it's kind of economic stuff. So here's the blurb from my publisher. It's been a great year to be a maker. Right, MakerBot. I mean, 5 years ago, right now, Bree Pettis was teaching art it was either Portland or Seattle. I can't remember. Does anybody remember? Was he from Portland or Seattle? He was literally a junior high art teacher 5 years ago today. He just had a $600 million exit. Yeah, baby. Every art teacher should see that. Bree's a great guy. Autodesk is our huge friend. Carl and his team, I don't know how much they spent. I don't have purview into that, which means I can estimate, right? My guess is they spent anywhere between $200 and $400 million in the maker space or adjacent space. So kudos to Carl, because he is literally the very first believer with a serious checkbook that's spending money in the space in a very serious way. Tinkercad, he just rolled up multiple CAM companies, computer-aided manufacturing, which is actually the hardest part of what my training consultants do. CAM is actually a really big deal. It's kind of under the covers, but it turns out to be a really big deal. It was one of our very first conversations. And so Autodesk has been huge for us. They've got an entire consumer division. They've leaned in. They stopped doing advertising because they were getting more impressions using iPads and giving stuff away for free. They bought Tinkercad. They bought IO Circuits, so kudos to Autodesk and Carl and what he's doing, right? We have Etsy and Kickstarter. Kickstarter broke $1 billion in funding this last year, and Etsy's doing $1.3 billion plus in sales. So this is, I feel like I'm in a home crowd. When I'm on the road and I ask, how many people have heard about the Maker Movement, I get like 5 people that raise their hand. It's crazy, which is why I have a really big deck that I'm going to blow through. GE is funding bets with us to the tune of almost $2 million over the next couple of years. GE had so much success with their initial quirky engagement over a period of 8 to 12 weeks that they convinced Ben to take $80 million. Good year. Make Magazine spun out. I love Tim O'Reilly and everything that he's done, but giving them the ability to go do what they need to do and raise funds separately and contain that was actually a really big deal that not a lot of people understood. Intel, of course, has launched not only Galileo, but Edison, and those are transformative projects. People know about Galileo? Raise your hand, please help me. Not as many. Okay, so Intel is one of the largest, most profitable companies in the world. They went to Massimo. Have you heard of Arduino? Yeah, okay, so we went to Massimo and said, we want to be in this space, but we want to play nicely with you. What can we do to help? And they launched the Galileo and Edison. So Edison is an SD card. It's a full-blown Arduino plus a 486 Pentium computer, not just a chip, computer on an SD card. They just enabled you to be able, with a few weeks of Arduino training, to be starting to play in the Internet of Things. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about later, easy, powerful, and cheap. And Intel is helping to drive it. Actually, remarkably, because they can't charge a lot of money in this space, so there's a little bit of altruism there. I'm not sure what their end game is, but there is something going on there that's actually very interesting. We love this. Pelosi was on site recently and said, I am in awe of the Maker Movement. Yeah, baby. The White House has announced a Maker Fair. It's coming up sometime, I believe it's in June. I don't know if that date has been announced yet. There are a couple of books out. That's a note to my publisher. And David Lang's book, Zero to Maker. It's a really inspiring story. If you haven't read it, you should get it. And there are 2 new hardware accelerators, increasing the number of hardware accelerators by 100%. In 1 year. We have a few more to go before we've hit saturation. All right, so this is where I'm going to skip through, like TechShop. If you haven't been there, come by, we get free tours. The important thing is really powerful, easy to use tools. So this is the interesting thing and where I'm going off script. So easy, powerful, and cheap. Easy, powerful, and cheap. Now, DeLucia, you gotta help me on this post-hoc, because I'm gonna need some help, like, making it right. Easy, powerful, and cheap. Medici brothers made banking easy, powerful, and at least for the rich, cheap. So you were able to create contracts in one part of the world and have them actually executed in another. Democratizing banking, at least at the city-state level and then beyond. That enables some amazing things. The printing press made knowledge easy, cheap, and powerful, enabling the entire Renaissance, yada, yada, yada. Not Renaissance. Renaissance happened before that. It was after that. Bunch of revolutions. There were Protestants involved and Catholics involved, and education became ubiquitous, and the printing press was big. The important thing, though, was it was easy, powerful, and cheap. It was powerful before that. It wasn't necessarily easy. The Industrial Revolution. Now, it did something. It made it powerful and relatively easy, but it didn't make it cheap. You know, the Internet Revolution, easy, powerful, cheap. Communications Revolution, easy, powerful, and cheap. The electricity, bringing power to the individuals at the local level, easy, powerful, and cheap. So what's happened in the last 10 years is that making things has become easy, powerful, and cheap. That is a really big deal. And so I won't quote myself, I'll quote Chris Anderson. Right? And you ask Chris, as I did, why did you leave Wired, the pinnacle of publishing? You've chronicled the entire rise of the internet. You've given voice to the long tail. Why in the world would you leave that position? And so he answered that question differently, but he answered it at the Long Now Foundation when essentially he was explaining what he was doing. And he said to the teams there, the groups that were there, these were all of his compadres, right? If you thought the internet was big, this is going to be bigger. That's why I'm excited. Is you've got the guy who chronicled the power of the internet that created CompuServe. Oh, they're dead. AOL. Actually, so there's a point there. Google, Facebook, etc. I have a really hard time believing long term that a pure economist is not going to discover that we lived in a very short period of time when the rules of marginal cost of production didn't exist. So the marginal cost of producing software is zero. So the marginal cost of software should be zero. So we happen to live in this really bizarre time frame, a 30-year, 20-year time frame where we have these huge behemoths that are throwing off enormous amounts of cash. I'm not so sure they're going to last all that long. Ask CompuServe, AOL, etc. what happened. But when you introduce atoms, atoms have to be shipped, atoms have to be managed, atoms have to be created, developed, so forth. And you have this whole patent protocol around it that will allow you to at least have a 19-year runway on it. Easy, powerful, and cheap. So I have to thank Autodesk for working this question really hard, trying to create tools that you and I can actually understand, enable us to run the computer numerically controlled machines that are sitting in our facility and around the world. It's so easy. I have a piece of software in my pocket called 123D Design for the iPhone, where I currently demonstrate to friends and relatives how to make, design, and get the code to produce a table in under 10 seconds. That's easy. Powerful is you've got access to computer numerically controlled machines, so I don't have to teach you how to use a router. It does itself. You load those files up and it runs. And cheap is when you democratize access to it by leveraging shared spaces, and it's $125 a month. $4 a day. That's a Starbucks addiction. Easy, powerful, and cheap. I got a little more serious than I was expecting, right? So I left on community because that's really important. So I'm going to do two things. I want to run through the projects, right? So what does this mean for you? 70% of the projects I'm going to show you there are for professionals who are deeply embedded in the space. 30% of these projects are for amateurs and newbies, and those are the one that makes it really interesting. I'll then do 6 technologies that have changed the world that have already come out of TechShop, and I'm going to end with a challenge because of that. Nothing is better than a challenge. So this is the world's fastest electric motorcycle. Repeat, the world's fastest. It just beat the Ducati Superbike by 20 seconds in a race. When was the last time you saw a race where like the second place finisher was 20 seconds late? Oh my God. Andy's working on jetpacks. He's now a NASA consultant. We had multiple CubeSats that have been launched. Danny learned how to make and did create, oops, here we go, 3D printer. I'm sorry, a Segway. Tina came in, she's one of the amateurs. She's a professional labor consultant by training. And she was able to quit her job after she launched Better Off Wed. I don't know how much she's making, but she did just take a 6-month vacation. This is a venture-backed startup. I think they've raised, I don't know, 5-6 million. This is a 3D printing company that came out. This is Karen, quit her 6-figure-a-year job selling tchotchkes, knitting needle gauges, into the $3 billion a year quilting business after taking one class. We grab that light. You just got to show. Just open the lamp. That's under that. Yeah. Just show it to them. Not that. No, the lamp there. Yeah, it looks like a book. Just pick it up. Open it up. 1, 2, 3. Yeah. He's a designer, but it never made anything. It took him about a month, figured it out, raised $500,000 roughly on a Kickstarter campaign. Anton basically did the same thing with a kayak. Mike's working on a desktop diamond manufacturing device. How many people carry a Dodo case? Buy one, they're amazing. So Patrick came in and asked, what classes do I need to take to learn how to make an iPad case out of bamboo and bookbinding? It was 3 classes, took him about 2 weeks. Within 90 days, he'd sold $1 million in product. 12 weeks, 0 to $1 million. And it started with no knowledge, finished with the knowledge he needed. He did $4 million in the first year, $10 million second, $35 million last year. That is the Dodo case right there. President Obama actually carries one of those cases. But no, none of those have changed the world. We had an early belief that if you gave the tools of the Industrial Revolution to the creative class for the cost of a Starbucks addiction, they would in fact change the world. And it is true they have, and I am hell-bent to put one of these babies in every major city in the world, because the biggest untapped resource on the planet is the shit that's between my ears. It's the shit that's between your ears. It's the cognitive surplus that the planet is sitting on. And now that tools are easy, cheap, and powerful, we need to leverage that. And so here are some folks that have changed the world. So this is James McKelvey. Those are the 3 original prototypes for Square. And what I really love about James is not his experience as a computer programmer, which he does have some, but it was the last decade he spent blowing glass as a glass-blowing studio owner in St. Louis. And he completely upended the merchant banking industry. This was not Jack's idea. This was James's idea, a glass blower in St. Louis. Yeah, let's hear it for James. Phil and his team built the world's most efficient data cooling center, attacking a $250 billion global spend. I skipped over somebody. This is a nitrogen detection device. They've raised $20 million, including folks from like the Koshla. These guys won a 2012 Fast Company Social Hardware Company of the Year, started the world's cheapest irrigation system. Let's hold up the blanket. That's on track to save 100,000 babies' lives in the next 5 years. Actually, they're already halfway there. They've got 50,000 of those blankets out, and it saves a life every time. But here's the challenge. Another point. There we go. So, my wife developed an allergy to flowers about 5 years ago, strangely enough. Now that sucks for a guy, because that means I can't hit the grocery store on the way home on February 14th. right? Anniversary becomes actually a planning project where I have to go like get jewelry and so forth. So I had to get a rose in 5 years. So I bought a 3D printer, put it at home because I think my kid needs one. I could very well be wrong, but I don't think so. It's kind of like the Trash 80, TRS 80 and so forth. It's like, it's that time you bring those things home. So I'm setting it up and I need to do a test print. And so I hit Thingiverse, which is Brie Pettis' thing. And it's actually the stalking horse. That's probably not the right. I think the real value that their company bought wasn't the 3D printing company. I think it was Thingiverse. It's got the largest database of 3D printing free things on the planet. And so I went online and stumbled across a rose, and I said, that works, I'll print out my wife a rose. So I printed out my wife a rose. Like I like saying this, I downloaded a rose. How cool is that? And of course, you know, I'm a guy, so it's like, shit, it's just printing out. It's like at least 38 cents worth of plastic. Print it out, clean it up, gave it to my wife. Home run. Oh my God, the first rose I've given her in 5 years, and I made it. So here's the challenge, because it actually can change your life. Please, sometime this year, Christmas, worst case, make something for somebody, give it to them, and experience that rush, because it is completely different.